To continue what we've been talking about for the last few weeks, the comparison between Christ and very important characters. And the comparison could be through competition, through similarities, through contrast, through many aspects. So we talked about Christ versus John the Baptist. We talked about Christ as a good shepherd versus Herod the king. We talked about Christ last week and Moses, and I was trying to highlight that really will not get the idea of how important Moses is for the Jewish faith. So Moses is a very important figure. Nobody can come closer to. And the only one in competition for a Jew is Elijah and Moses. Elijah was the miracle of everything he's done, but also was the big mysterious thing that he's still alive somehow in heaven. And Moses for everything has been done, the Ten Commandments, leading the Israelites out of Egypt, all the big things that if you are a Jew, you will never be a Jew without understanding Moses is a central guy. And we find out from last week that John, the writer of this gospel, was really trying to break through to make Christ come in a way to be closer to Moses. But then we'll see that in this part, he's just saying he's not even closer, he's better. He is the true bread of life. As we need to remind ourselves, the Gospel of John is the latest to be written, but also is a very unique gospel because it's written in a way that's more enigmatic, mysterious, more like in a coding way. John is reminding me of a few people that I know in my life who are very smart and you need to listen to them carefully. Because when they joke, you listen to their jokes and it doesn't make any sense to you until you take it and 5 minutes later, you start to laugh about what they said, you know? It is this kind of like smart playing with words and then you figure out now. The same thing about when somebody, one of your smart friends or close people in your say something and it doesn't make sense in the moment. But the more you sit on it, the more you chew on what you heard, you laugh and you find like, yeah, this guy was really meaning something deeper than just what the statement sound like in the beginning. So John is like that. If you think you got what he said from the first thing, you are wrong. You need always to find there are many layers in this guy. When this guy said the dark, he's not just talking about the dark that you and me referring to. When he refer, every word has a heavy meaning, one on the surface, but there are many, many layers under that. So, and we see that in this part, as we talked last week, this part starts to continue from where we finished last week. So last week, what happened last week? Two important things. Feeding the multitude, the 5,000 people, big event, 5,000 people. A stadium full, just imagine that, stadium in our modern day full of people who are hungry, and we have only this fish and loaves. Another big miracle that's happened in the last reading from last week was the really calming the storm and Christ walking in the water. A lot of things happen. Okay, we know that the disciples heard that Jesus said, I am, and he did not say anything else. And in this part, we'll hear the crowd is coming. They're looking all over. They are running around. They're so amazed by this guy who does so much. He can feed us. He can surprise us. He can surprise his own disciples. He can walk on the water. He can tell the storm to stop, and he can make stop instantly. So this crowd is coming. They walked all over the lake to go to the other side of the lake and to find Christ. Wow, that's good. We're starting the story today with a good impression. This crowd are looking for Jesus. And then when they start to look, then the first thing came out of their mouth, the question about, how did you get here? And Christ was so surprised, and we see this kind of like really very, very weird conversation about what they are asking, and Christ's answer has nothing to do with their question. It seems like if I'm sitting there and watching a conversation with these two people, Christ and the crowd, I say, there is a big communication problem between these two people. One is asking a question that seems really doesn't matter. Christ starts to ask the right question and say, why are you here? Why are you here? Because you figure out that who I am? Why are you here? Because you really know that I am the one you need? Or I'm just a grocery store for you. Your belly is empty again and you need somebody to feed you. So as we see this crowd is coming closer and closer and asking this question, and Christ said, because your belly being filled, that's why you came here. So Christ start to really undecode the message about what happened. I walked with you, I looked at you, and I saw you were so in much need, and I tried to figure out what I can do. I saw you were there like no shepherds. Nobody cares about you. You are out there in the wilderness, and I saw your needs, and I perform a miracle. Just try to remind you there is more than what you see. There is more than what you feel here. When Christ is trying to bring the bread, the material bread, but he was trying to say, what about the spiritual bread? How many times that we really are so scared about how to provide for ourselves and our needs and our loved ones. Since the beginning of humanity, human fought about to secure the source to stay alive. What are these two main resources? Bread and water. How do you get bread? From wheat, you know? They didn't have tons of different kind of bread, that fancy breads that we making today. That was the thing that to keep people alive, the essential, to have a whole wheat and have it in a healthy way. They didn't know anything about just to make the flours and all of these things. That was a very natural way that humanity learned about stay alive. So people fought each other. People moved mountains, and nation moved from one place into another. Every time they feel the threat, the main resource that can keep us alive, water and bread. And if we are scared about to secure them, we'll do everything to do that. So Christ is trying to make this as a philosophical, deep, spiritual question. This is what you do because you understand the meaning of being hungry to death and thirsty, where you feel you are so weak and you cannot take your next step. Let's talk about that. And as the same way you feel so desperate to secure, and remind yourself, how do you feel when you are so hungry? We're not talking about people who need to eat 3 meals, who needs to eat good breakfast, cereal in the morning or night, all these healthy diets. We're talking about humans who are trying to stay alive. We're talking about, this is the meaning of bread. So when Christ talks in this context, these people understand it in a very good way. So that's why they were actually asking for a literal bread that they can have one time, and I don't need to worry about bread the rest of my life. If somebody can give me a meal and I do not need to worry about, am I going to have my next meal available or next bread available or not? If somebody can give me this kind of water that I can have one time, and I do not need to worry. If the whole world goes out of water, I can be good and I can continue in this life. How many times people can fantasize that and can imagine that if there is one time fix, give me this meal and it will last forever. Give me this sip of water and I'll be secure forever. That means that our soul is dying for something. Our soul is feeling unsecured. But maybe this is the message that Christ is trying to say. The cycle of hunger and satisfaction. The sense of being thirsty, but also reminding yourself on a very, very hot day, and see how it feels good with a cup of cold water. When you just get the feeling, moving from being desperate and weak and needy into the point of feeling refreshed and filled. But every time this happens, it happens every time. It happens in the same day. It happens in the same week. So as Christ is trying to say that, as this happened to you on a daily basis, have you questioned about your soul, your spirit? Is your soul needs a kind of bread too? As you, because of out of your needs and feelings, you reach out to food because you are so hungry. You reach out to get any kind of liquid, waters or drinks to keep yourself alive. And Christ saying, as you see that on a daily basis, maybe this is an alarm for you to say that your soul, your spirit, could be also starving. But what kind of food? You know that if you are hungry, you know what you do. If you are thirsty, but I didn't know how to catch these kind of things that we call soul, spirit. That's something that's just flying in the air. I didn't even know how to feed it. It's not a being that I can catch, but for my body do a very good job. But Christ is saying that as far as you are not in me, your soul is starving. Your soul is always looking for something. Your soul has really been so weak for many years because you never understand that as you feed your own physical body, that one day will be gone. Any kind of food, good or bad, high quality or low quality, it always goes to be spoiled. No foods last. No satisfaction that you will have on earth will last forever. It's all temporary. And that will lead us into, can I get any kind of satisfaction that can last beyond my bodies? The spirit can be also that can stay in a boat while everything is around me. My boat is my life, and my life sometimes looks like the boat that's rocking ups and downs. But if my soul is in God, it will stay. It will do what requires to do in the middle of the boat, while to see Christ is coming in and through the storm to be with me, to talk to me, to help me to understand that before he needs to calm the storm outside me, he needs to calm the storm within me, within my heart. This is the kind of peace, this is the kind of gift that Christ is trying to give to you and me today. How ignorant we are, all the times trying to secure ourselves by material things, and we never get fully satisfied. We never get fully secured. We build walls after walls. We build things after things, but we find ourselves, instead of feeling secure and safe, we find we're building more jails around. We're building more cells around ourselves. Christ to say is, who do you think I am? Who is Jesus? This is the big question. Who's Jesus for you? Is he the guy who will show up in the minute of your storm? You want him to fix it. He fixed it. What happened? Bye-bye, I'm good. My life is good. We take a break now. Wait until some bad things happen in my life, and I will call you again. How many times we do that? We feel we're so closer to God when we are threatened and feel desperate and feel vulnerable. But when things start to bloom and start to get better and steady, what do we do to Christ? We say, Christ, thank you. It's not your time now. Let's be quiet. So Christ is trying to teach us about as this bread is so essential for you. I don't know if that's coincidence or not, but just as I was thinking about this sermon, that's in Egypt, the only Arabic country that use word for bread, the use word is not bread. They use the word that's meaning in their language. It's word called aish, which means life. So everybody call it bread, the rest of the Arab world. And I wonder about how much maybe that's coming from a very old tradition, very maybe 1,000 of years, when people think if you really have a bread, only a bread, you can stay alive. So that they call life is bread. So the same word they use for bread is life. So as today for me, as I did not understand, because I think of bread is an extra piece on the table. That's our modern understanding of the bread. But the bread been so essential in the ancient world. You are so poor and in deep trouble if you cannot provide a simple bread into the family. So as Christ understand the importance of the bread, and for a Jew, they understand that the bread kept us alive when we were in the wilderness, when God gave the manna to Moses, and Moses gave it to us. So as we see that today, that Christ is saying, you keep asking the wrong question, and I keep show up in your life. You keep looking at the wrong side, and I keep trying to take your eyes to look at the right side. You fail many times to understand why I did this and that, and I try to help you many times. But God never stops to talk to you and me. God never stops to try to communicate with us in many ways. So as God is talking to you and me today, He's telling us, stop worrying about many things. Stop trying to work very hard. And simply believe. Believe that I am the bread of life. How many times we're so stubborn about, give me a list, and I'm good. I'm good at, give me a to-do list, and I'm very good with that. In the morning, I pray this way. In afternoon, I give this money. And we make this like an agreement of working between two people in a company. But we miss the point that Christ wants to be in a relationship with you. We are spending so much time about what should we do to make God happy. That how can you make God happy if you are not believing in Him the way He is? People like Christ the magician, Christ that feeds, and Christ that stops the storms, Christ that do miracles, Christ that do signs. But Christ saying that it's not about the food. I am the one behind the food. You loved Moses and you celebrated Moses because the manna came from heaven and provide food for you. But Moses did not give you the food. That's a difference. In all these characters that we've been talking about, people could not figure out they are the shadow of the truth. They are the reflection of the light, but they are not the light. They are putting signs on the road, but they are not the road. They are great people, did a wonderful thing, but they are not in any way the thing that you need. They were the messenger, but in Christ, Christ is the message itself and the messenger. So as we see that today, that is trying to shift their eyes into a deeper meaning. It's not just the food. I want you to think about something else more than the food. It's not about the water, as we hear the story from the lady at the well in chapter 4. And all the talk is about the water, but Christ is not really talking about the water. All the talk last week is about the food and how we prepare the food. But really the talk is not about the food. So Christ is trying to say, while you are failing to understand what I'm trying to say to you, I will never stop to communicate to you. People, do you listen? People, are you willing to try? People, are you trying to keep going and looking at my directions and follow me? So the Spirit needs to be fed. And as Christ said in the last week when the disciples were scared, and he said, I am, and I did not say more. Do not be afraid. In this text, Christ made a big move, and he said, I am the bread of life. Christ giving more than explanation, more than just I am, but who I am. I am for you the bread of life. As we see that in chapter 3, when Christ talked to Nicodemus about the birth, how to be born again. And this nice guy who was thinking about the real birth that you and me think of. But Christ was talking about the birth beyond the birth that we understand. And in chapter 4, when he talked to the woman at the well, he was talking not about the water that you and me think of, but he was talking about the water that beyond the water that we know and think of. And in this chapter, he added that while we all talk and worry and concern about the bread to save our life, Christ is saying, I am the bread, but my bread that I offer to you is beyond the bread that you understand. This is the message for you and me today, to understand that this is the bread of life, that if you believe, your actions will be easily happen from the source. Do not worry about how much you do, but just simply believe that Christ is the one who will provide for you what you need. Not the system, not the country, not the globe, not anything else. If life goes upside down, this kind of guy that you need will be with you. If the whole world fails you, if the whole world really betrays you, if everything else goes against what you deserve, Christ is saying, I am the one that will never leave you, and I am the one that's going to be honest and sincere to you all the time, from now and forever. Amen.
If anyone has any joys, concerns, please raise your hand.